Hey, you ever wonder if the good you do comes back to you? Like, years later, in a way you'd never expect? This is one of those stories that'll make you believe in something bigger, call it fate, the universe, or just the magic of a kind heart. Out in the wild savannah, where the sun burns like a furnace and danger lurks in every shadow, a ranger named Daniel faced a test of survival that'd change him forever. It's about Leos, loyalty, and a bond that crossed years and species. Picture this: golden grass swaying under a ruthless sky, a lone man on a mission, and a moment that proves animals might just understand us better than we think. Ready to feel this one in your soul? Let's go! The air crackled with heat as Daniel stepped into the savannah, his boots crunching on brittle earth. What was driving him out there, under that merciless sun? The savannah stretched endless before Daniel, a sea of gold and brown that shimmered under a sun that felt alive, like it was pressing its full weight on his shoulders. He was a seasoned guarda florestal, with lines etched on his face from years of squinting into the horizon, but today's mission burned hotter than most. Cacador's illegais had laced the plains with armadillos, cruel snares hidden in the grass, waiting to snap shut on unsuspecting Leos. Daniel's jaw tightened as he pictured a proud beast caught, its roar silenced. Sweat stung his eyes, and the air smelled of baked clay and distant smoke, sharp enough to choke. He adjusted his hat, took a swig from his canteen, and pressed on, driven by a stubborn compexo for the wild. But how long could he keep going in this heat? Each step felt heavier, the ground radiating warmth that seeped through his soles. Daniel's radio crackled faintly, his team's voices a distant hum, but he was too far out now, alone with the savannah's pulse. He scanned for signs of wire or disturbed earth, his heart thumping not just from effort but from the weight of what was at stake. The Leos weren't just animals to him, they were the soul of this place, fierce and free. A rustle in the grass made him freeze, only a bird, darting skyward with a shrill cry. His throat was parched, his canteen nearly empty, but turning back wasn't an option. What if a snare was just ahead, waiting to claim a life? The heat was a living thing now, wrapping around him like a predator. Daniel's vision blurred at the edges, and his legs wobbled, but he thought of the Philhote he'd once seen born under a starry sky, all wobbly legs and curious eyes. That memory fueled him, a spark of purpose in the haze. He crouched to inspect a patch of trampled grass, fingers brushing the dirt for clues. Nothing, but the effort cost him, his breath coming in shallow gasps. The savannah seemed to whisper, urging him forward, as if the Leos themselves were watching. Could he find the strength to keep searching, or was the heat winning? Daniel's head throbbed, each pulse a reminder of his limits. He'd faced storms and poachers before, but this caller was different, relentless, personal. He stumbled, catching himself on a rock that burned his palm. The smell of his own sweat mixed with the dry, musky scent of the plains, grounding him for a moment. His team was hours away, and the sun showed no mercy. Yet, something deeper than duty pushed him on, a quiet instinto that this mission mattered more than he could know. Maybe it was a sign, a nudge from the universe. What was out there, waiting for him in the vastness? He didn't see the acacia tree until he was nearly under it, its sparse shade a fleeting promise of relief. Daniel's knees buckled, and he sank to the ground, the world tilting dangerously. His last thought was of the Leos, their golden eyes flashing in his mind like a beacon. The savannah held its breath, and darkness crept in, soft as a whisper. What would happen to him now, alone and vulnerable in a land ruled by survival? The savannah was a furnace now, the air so thick with calor it felt like breathing fire. Daniel lay slumped against the acacia tree, its gnarled roots digging into his back, the only thing anchoring him to the world. His canteen was bone dry, and his lips cracked with each ragged breath. The scent of sun-scorched thorns hung heavy, sharp and bitter, unlike the smoky earth of his earlier trek. His mind drifted, hazy images of his childhood dog flashing, those loyal eyes that seemed to say, "I've got you." Was this it, then? Fading out in the wild, just another speck in the vastness? A faint rustle stirred the grass, too close, and his heart lurched. What was out there, watching him in the silence? His body betrayed him, heavy as stone, while the sun bore down like a judge with no mercy. The savannah's sounds, distant bird calls, the hum of insects, blurred into a single, droning pulse, lulling him toward darkness. Daniel's fingers twitched, brushing the dirt, where a tiny beetle scuttled, oblivious to his struggle. It was strange, how even now, nature marched on, fierce. In its sobrevivencia. He'd always felt part of this place, its rhythms in his blood, but now it felt indifferent, ready to swallow him whole. A shadow flickered at the edge of his vision, massive and golden. Was it a mirage, or something real creeping closer? The world tilted, and Daniel's eyes fluttered shut, his breath a shallow whisper. The acacia's leaves rustled above, their soft clatter like a lullaby, pulling him deeper into the void. He didn't feel the ground anymore, only a strange weightlessness, as if the savannah itself was cradling him. In that moment, a memory surfaced, not of Leo's or armadillos, but of his mother's voice, singing about angels in the wild. Was this a sign, a whisper from the universe that he wasn't alone? His pulse slowed, and the darkness thickened, but something, instinto, maybe, prickled at his core. What would he see if he opened his eyes again? When the desmayo claimed him, it was gentle, like sinking into a warm sea. The savannah fell silent, or maybe he just couldn't hear it anymore. His hat lay tipped beside him, dust settling on its brim, a small testament to his fight. The air shimmered, carrying the musky tang of fur, different from the thorn scent that had choked him earlier. Somewhere in his fading thoughts, Daniel sensed he wasn't alone. The Leos he'd spent his life protecting, could they sense his struggle, too? A low, rumbling sound, not quite a growl, vibrated through the earth. Was it danger, or something else entirely? He was gone to the world now, unconscious beneath the acacia's sparse shade, vulnerable in a land where sobrevivencia ruled. The savannah held its secrets close, its golden grasses swaying as if whispering to unseen watchers. Daniel's chest rose and fell, faint but stubborn, a flicker of life in the vastness. The air grew heavier, charged with a presence he couldn't feel. 3 shapes loomed near, Leos, their eyes gleaming with something beyond hunger. Were they here to claim him, or had the universe sent guardians in fur? What would happen when Daniel's eyes opened to this impossible scene? Daniel's eyes fluttered open, the world a blur of gold and green, like waking inside a fever dream. His head throbbed, and the air carried a new scent, warm, earthy fur, laced with the faint tang of dry grass, nothing like the scorched thorns of his collapse. He blinked, heart stuttering as 3 Leos loomed close, a massive macho with a mane like burnt amber, a femia with eyes sharp as moonlight, and a filhote, all knobby knees and curious stares. They weren't crouched to pounce, they sat, calm, their protokeo a silent vow. The savannah hummed softly, crickets weaving a delicate chorus, and Daniel's breath caught. Was this real, or had the caller spun a vision from his soul? He shifted, wincing as a sharp twig poked his side, grounding him in the moment. The Leos didn't flinch, their gazes steady, like they'd been waiting for him to wake. Daniel's mind raced, Leos didn't act like this, not in a land ruled by instinto. Yet here they were, their presence heavy with purpose, as if the universe had orchestrated this meeting. The filhote tilted its head, letting out a small, throaty chirp, and Daniel's chest warmed. Who hasn't felt a spark of connexo with a creature that defies all logic? But why were they here, watching him like old friends? The macho's tail flicked, stirring dust that glittered in the fading sunlight, a scene so vivid it felt painted. Daniel's throat was still dry, but fear didn't grip him, confianza did, strange and unearned. He noticed the femia's ear twitch, catching a distant sound he couldn't hear, her alertness a quiet strength. This wasn't just a random encounter, it felt like a repayment, a nod to some forgotten kindness. His mind tugged at a memory, too faint to grasp, of another time in this savannah. Could these Leos know him, somehow? The filhote shuffled closer, its tiny paws leaving prints in the dirt. What story was unfolding beneath those watchful eyes? Daniel's gaze locked with the macho's, and something passed between them, not words, but a vinculo deeper than language. The air felt charged, like the moment before a storm, carrying the weight of shared history. The savannah's colors seemed brighter now, the acacia's leaves glowing with a soft, golden edge. He'd spent years protecting these creatures, but this was them returning the favor. A low rumble from the macho vibrated through Daniel's bones, not a threat but a promise. Who else could say they'd stared into a lion's eyes and felt safe? But what had brought these guardians to his side at this exact moment? His strength was creeping back, each breath a little steadier, but questions swirled faster than he could hold. The Leo's protoceo was no accident, it felt like fate, like they'd chosen him. The Philhote yawned, sprawling in the dirt with a carefree flop, and Daniel almost laughed, such a small, human-like gesture in this wild place. The Savannah stretched around them, vast and alive, whispering of bonds that outlast time. A faint memory flickered again, sharper now, of a desperate rescue years ago. Could that be the key to this impossible scene? What would happen if danger stirred in the shadows of this fragile piece? Daniel's gaze lingered on the Leal Macho, its amber eyes sparking a memoria that surged like a river breaking free. Years ago, under a Savannah sky bruised with twilight, he'd been on patrol, the air thick with the sweet, damp scent of rain-soaked earth, nothing like the dry grass of today. He'd heard a desperate whimper, high and piercing, cutting through the evening's hush. Following the sound, he found a Philhote, barely bigger than a house cat, its leg caught in one of those cruel armadillos left by Cacador's illigais. The little Leal's fur was matted with mud, its eyes wide with fear, and Daniel's heart twisted. Who could leave a creature like that to suffer? But what happened next would stay with him forever. He'd knelt beside the Philhote, his hands steady despite the risk of its mother lurking nearby. The trap's metal teeth gleamed, cold and unyielding, but Daniel's Campexo burned brighter. He murmured soft words, nonsense really, as he pried the snare open, the creak of rusted steel loud against the Savannah's quiet. The Philhote trembled, its tiny body warm against his palms, and when it was free, it didn't bolt, it looked at him, a fleeting moment of confianza that felt like a gift. He'd named it Kono, after the stars blinking above, a name that felt right. Could that scared cub be the proud Leal now watching over him? The memoria sharpened, vivid as if it were yesterday. Daniel recalled carrying Kono to a safer spot, his boots sinking into the muddy ground, the air alive with the chatter of night birds. He'd checked the Philhote's leg, relieved to find only a shallow cut, and left it near a thicket where its pride might find it. As he walked away, a low roar echoed, grateful, he'd thought, or maybe just his heart hoping. The Savannah had felt different that night, like it was holding its breath, sealing a promise between man and beast. Was that moment the seed of this impossible protoceo unfolding now? Back in the present, Daniel's chest tightened, the pieces clicking together. The Leal Macho's mane, the way it held its head, it had to be Kono, grown into a king of the plains. The Savannah's colors seemed to pulse, the golden grass catching the light like a halo around the Leos. Daniel's hands shook, not from weakness but from awe at this reciprocity, this bond that time couldn't break. Who hasn't wondered if kindness ripples back, years later, in ways we can't predict? But what did Kono remember of that night, and why protect him now? The Philhote from the present pride shuffled closer, its playful nudge against the femia pulling Daniel back to the moment. The air carried a new warmth, like the Savannah itself was exhaling, softer than the rain-soaked dusk of his memory. He wondered about Kono's journey. Had he faced Cacadors, fought for his pride, carried that same confianza Daniel had seen in his eyes? The Leo's presence felt like a bridge across years, a testament to Campexo's quiet power. But the Savannah wasn't safe, not with hyenas or other threats lurking. What would happen if danger broke this fragile truce? The Savannah's golden hush snapped like a twig as a sharp, cackling laugh sliced through the air, hyenas, their eerie calls echoing like a warning from the wild itself. Daniel's pulse quickened, his body still weak beneath the acacia, but the Leos around him stirred, their protoceo a living shield. The scent of dust and warm hide filled his nostrils, distinct from the rain-soaked earth of his memoria. Kono, the Leal Macho, stood tall, his mane bristling as he scanned the horizon, eyes like embers in the fading light. The Philhote tucked closer to the femia, whose low growl rumbled like distant thunder. Who hasn't felt that prickle of danger, when the world holds its breath? But what was coming, and could these Leos hold it at bay? The hyena's laughter grew closer, a chilling chorus that grated against the Savannah's soft hum of crickets. Shadows darted beyond the grass, lean and hungry, their eyes glinting with reckless greed. Daniel's hands clenched, his strength barely a flicker, but Kono's instinto kicked in, sharp and unyielding. The Leal stepped forward, his massive paws silent on the earth, and let out a rosnado that shook the air, a sound so deep it seemed to rise from the Savannah's core. The femia flanked him, her tail lashing, a silent vow of confianza in her mate. Could this pride, bound by loyalty, really stand between Daniel and death? The first hyena broke from the grass, its spotted hide slick with sweat, teeth bared in a mocking grin. The air turned sour with their musky stench, a stark contrast to the warm hide scent of the Leos. Kono didn't hesitate, his rosnado escalated, a primal warning that vibrated through Daniel's chest, stirring awe and fear. The hyena froze, then skittered back, but others circled, testing the pride's resolve. The Filhote whimpered, and Daniel's heart ached. Who could blame the little one for trembling? Yet the Leos held their ground, their protoceo a fortress against the creeping threat. What would it take to drive these scavengers away for good? Kono lunged, a blur of muscle and fury, his roar exploding like a storm breaking loose. The Savannah seemed to lean in, grasses swaying as if cheering him on, their dry rustle a new sound in the tense air. The hyenas scattered, their cackles turning shrill with panic, but one lingered, bold or foolish, snapping at the femia. She swiped, claws flashing, and it yelped, bolting into the dusk. Daniel watched, breathless, as Kono's eyes met his again, a flicker of something like reconocimiento. Was this Leal fighting for him, repaying a debt forged years ago? But how long could this fragile peace hold in the wild's unforgiving heart? The hyena's calls faded, swallowed by the Savannah's vastness, leaving only the Leo's heavy breaths and the faint whistle of wind through the acacia. Daniel's hands unclenched, his body trembling not from fear but from the weight of what he'd witnessed. Kono settled back, his mane catching the last rays of sunlight, a king reclaiming his throne. The Filhote nosed the femia, its fear forgotten, and Daniel almost smiled. Kids, human or Leal, bounce back fast. The Savannah felt alive again, its pulse steady, but danger was never far. What would happen when Daniel's team arrived, and would Kono's protoceo extend to that moment? The Savannah exhaled a cool breeze, a fleeting mercy as the sun dipped low, painting the grasses in hues of fire and shadow. Daniel sat propped against the acacia, the Leos still near, their calm present a quiet anchor. The air carried a new scent, faint diesel and leather, cutting through the dusty warmth of Kono's pride. A distant hum grew louder, the growl of a jeep, and Daniel's heart lifted, his A-keep was coming. Kono's ears twitched, catching the sound, and he rose, his mane glowing like a crown in the twilight. Who hasn't felt that rush of hope when help feels just out of reach? But would the Leos, so fierce against hyenas, trust these newcomers? The jeep's headlights sliced through the dusk, bobbing over uneven ground, and Daniel caught Mark's voice, sharp with worry, calling his name. The femia Leal shifted, her eyes narrowing, but Kono stayed steady, his confianza a silent command to his pride. The Filhote, bold now, scampered toward the jeep's light, then froze, as if sensing the moment's weight. The Savannah's night sounds, chirping frogs, a lone owl's hoot, wove a fragile calm, unlike the hyena cackles of before. Daniel waved weakly, his voice a croak, praying the Leos wouldn't see the A-keep as a threat. Could Kono sense they were here to help? Mark leapt from the jeep, his boots thudding on the earth, his face a mix of relief and disbelief as he spotted the Leos. "Daniel, you okay?" "What the lions?" he stammered, freezing mid-step. Kono stepped forward, not with a rosnado but a low, rumbling huff, almost like a guide leading the way. The air felt electric, charged with the Savannah's pulse, its grasses whispering secrets of trust. Mark's team hesitated, radios crackling, but Daniel rasped, "They're protecting me." The Filhote tilted its head, curious, and Mark's tense shoulders eased. Who could deny the magic of this moment? But how would the Resgate unfold with these wild guardians watching? Kono moved toward the jeep, his massive frame graceful, as if showing the A-keep the path to Daniel. The scent of diesel grew stronger, mingling with the Savannah's earthy tang, a blend that grounded Daniel's spinning mind. Mark knelt beside him, checking his pulse, his hands steady but his eyes darting to the Leos. The femia lay down, her tail flicking, while the Philhote pounced on a stray leaf, oblivious to the tension. Daniel managed a faint smile. Kids, even Leal kids, find joy in the smallest things. The Savannah seemed to nod, its colors softening, but a question lingered. Would Kono let them take Daniel away so easily? The Akeep worked fast, lifting Daniel onto a stretcher, their movements careful under Kono's watchful gaze. The Leos didn't stir, their protoceo unwavering, as if they knew their role was done. The Jeep's engine rumbled, ready to carry Daniel to safety, but Kono took a final step closer, his eyes locking with Daniel's. It felt like a silent vow, a bridge of confianza spanning years. The Savannah's night air wrapped around them, cool and alive, whispering of bonds that defy explanation. As the Jeep rolled forward, Daniel wondered, would he ever see Kono again? What farewell awaited in this fleeting moment? The Jeep rumbled forward, its tires crunching over the Savannah's dry earth, carrying Daniel away from the acacia's shade. He craned his neck, eyes locked on Kono, whose silhouette stood proud against the twilight's purple glow. The air was cool now, tinged with the crisp scent of night-blooming flowers, a far cry from the diesel fumes of the Resgate. The Leos, Kono, the Femia, and the Philhote watched in silence, their presenca quiet him of gratideo. Daniel's chest ached, not from weakness but from the weight of this despedida. Who hasn't felt the tug of leaving someone who changed you forever? But what would this final glance hold for him and Kono? Kono took a slow step forward, his mane catching the last slivers of light, like a beacon in the gathering dark. The Savannah's night chorus swelled, crickets and distant jackal yips, wrapping the moment in a tender embrace. Daniel's hand rested on the stretcher's edge, his fingers twitching as if to reach out. He swore. Kono's eyes softened, a flicker of reconocimiento that spanned years, from a Philhote's rescue to this unspoken vow. Mark, driving, glanced back, his voice low, they're still watching, Dan. Could this bond, forged in Campexo, truly end here? The Femia and Philhote turned, slipping into the grass with a rustle, their forms blending into the Savannah's shadows. Kono lingered, alone now, his massive frame steady as a mountain. The air shimmered with the faint warmth of the day's last heat, carrying a new stillness, like the world was honoring this moment. Daniel whispered, "Thank you, Kono," his voice barely a breath, lost in the Jeep's hum. It felt like a prayer, a nod to the universe for weaving their paths together. Who could say where kindness ends and destiny begins? But would Kono understand this farewell as Daniel did? Kono let out a low huff, not a roar but a sound that sank into Daniel's bones, heavy with meaning. He turned, his tail flicking once, then padded into the Savannah, his form swallowed by the night. The Jeep's headlights carved a path ahead, but Daniel's gaze stayed fixed on the darkness where Kono had vanished. The Savannah's vastness felt smaller now, laced with a connexo that defied distance. Mark squeezed his shoulder, saying nothing. Some things don't need words. Could Daniel carry this moment forward, or would it fade like the twilight? The Jeep rolled on, the Savannah stretching endless around them, its secrets tucked into the folds of night. Daniel's strength was returning, his breath steadier, but his heart clung to that final image of Kono, a king of the wild who'd chosen to protect him. The air grew cooler, the floral scent fading into the raw earthiness of the plains. This despedida wasn't an end, but a promise, of respeto, of history, of something eternal. As the stars blinked above, Daniel wondered, would their paths cross again? What would the Savannah reveal in the days to come? Weeks later, Daniel stood at the Savannah's edge, his strength back but his heart forever changed. The morning air was sharp with the scent of dew-kissed grass, a gentle contrast to the night-blooming flowers of his despedida. He leaned on his Jeep, binoculars in hand, scanning the horizon where the plains shimmered under a soft dawn haze. Kono's pride was out there, living their wild lives, and Daniel felt a quiet gratideo for the Leos who'd saved him. The Savannah's hum, rustling leaves, a distant antelope's snort, felt like an old friend's voice. Who hasn't longed to reconnect with someone who touched their soul? But would he see Kono again, or was their story complete? He spotted movement, a flash of amber against the green. Heart racing, Daniel focused his binoculars, and there was Kono, his mane catching the sunrise like a crown of fire. The Lael stood on a rise, the Femia and Filhote nearby, their forms small but fierce in the vastness. The air carried a faint warmth, the Savannah's breath, stirring memories of that day under the acacia. Kono's gaze seemed to find him, even from miles away, a silent reconocimiento that tightened Daniel's throat. Could a Lael feel the same connexo that lingered in a man's heart? Their eyes held, not as ranger and beast, but as beings bound by a shared historia. The Savannah stretched between them, its colors vivid, golden grass, pink sky, the glint of dew like scattered jewels. Daniel lowered his binoculars, letting the moment sink in, raw and unfiltered. He'd faced cacadors, armadillos, and the wild's wrath, but this was why he stayed. The Filhote bounded after a butterfly, and Daniel chuckled, the sound soft in the morning's hush. Who doesn't see a spark of themselves in a creature's simple joy? But what did this distant reunion mean for the Savannah? Seemed to hum with life, as if celebrating their vinculo. Daniel's fingers brushed the scar on his palm, a faint reminder of freeing Kono years ago. The air felt alive, carrying the earthy tang of soil and the promise of new days. Kono turned, leading his pride into the grass, and Daniel smiled, knowing this wasn't goodbye. Their confianza, forged in Campexo, would endure, a lesson in how kindness ripples through time. Wasn't that the real magic of the wild? What would Daniel carry forward from this? Daniel drove back to camp, the Savannah's glow fading into a soft dusk, its vastness a mirror of his thoughts. He'd return tomorrow, and the next day, guarding the Leos who'd guarded him. The air cooled, laced with the smoky hint of a distant fire, grounding him in the now. Kono's eyes lingered in his mind, a reminder that some bonds outlast distance, time, even words. Who hasn't felt the pull of something bigger, something that says we're all connected? As the stars emerged, Daniel knew, the Savannah had taught him that the greatest lessons often walk on four paws. What would he do with that truth? And there you have it, folks, a story that proves the wild has a heart bigger than we can imagine. Daniel and Kono, two souls crossing paths in the Savannah, showed us that Campexo isn't just a word, it's a force that builds bridges across years, species, and even danger. From a scorching mission to a Lael's Rosnado chasing off hyenas, every moment was a testament to confianza, gratideo, and the kind of connexo that leaves you wiping your eyes. The Savannah's still out there, whispering its lessons to anyone who'll listen. So, what's your story? Ever had an animal change your life, teach you something you didn't expect? Drop it in the comments, we're all ears. And if this tale moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that remind us, sometimes, the greatest teachers have fur and a roar.